So, I think in my last video where I talked about living the life you want, I think I wasn't specific enough or I was a bit vague. So, I just wanted to clear that up. The 3 steps that I took to live the life I want, which is to not work anymore, were to number 1, figure out what I wanted. Number 2, figure out the trade-offs of getting what I wanted. And then number 3, take action on what I wanted. And I think I wasn't clear enough about why these steps were important in helping you get what you want, because there is a reason for each of those steps that I gave you, which is why they worked for me. So going back to the first step of figuring out what you want. In the last video, I talked about how you should think about what you want, write it down, and envision it. But why? Why exactly is it important to write down and envision what you want? It's because your brain will find opportunities to bring about whatever it is that you focus on. It's just like if you get a blue car, you'll start noticing more blue cars on the road, right? It's the same type of premise as the self-fulfilling prophecy. If you constantly think something will happen and then the thing happens, it's usually not because it happened out of nowhere. It's usually because, you were so focused on that thing and that indicated to your brain that that's what you wanted to happen. So your brain found opportunities to bring it about, either consciously or subconsciously. When you write down what it is you want and really immerse yourself in that vision, you make both a mental and emotional connection with the thing you want. And when that happens, it indicates to your brain that this is something that it should be more attentive to. And as a result, it will find more opportunities to bring about the thing that you want. Which is why, if you don't think you can have the life you want, you won't. And if you think you can have the life you want, you will. Now, when you write down the thing that you want or the life that you want to live and envision it, you don't just do this once. You can write it down once, but what you want to do is bring focus to it every day, or at least bring focus to it very often. Because the more you bring focus to it, the more you think about it, the more you envision it, the more your brain will find opportunities to help you bring it about. So in my last video, I mentioned that my want was to not work anymore. I mentioned that I wrote it down in November and I was laid off by May. But what I didn't talk about so much was that I didn't just write it down, right? I envisioned it. I envisioned what life would be like if I didn't work, how relaxed I'd feel. I stopped applying to jobs because, I said I didn't want to work anymore and I didn't want my focus to be split. I wanted to really give my brain the opportunity to focus. So I didn't apply to jobs anymore. And even at work, I stopped taking on so much. What's quite interesting is that I actually said out loud that I wanted to be done working by early May the latest. And wouldn't you know it, the first week of May, I was laid off. Yes, I understand that the layoff was a bit out of my hands. But was it really? Remember the self-fulfilling prophecy thing that I mentioned? So it could be that since my brain was constantly focused on me not wanting to work, I was subconsciously pushing that out, that I don't want to work energy out into the world. And my employer noticed. I mean, I'll never know, and I don't really care to know, but the point is, your brain will do things consciously or subconsciously to help bring about the things that you're focused on. So, what is it that you want? And once you've figured out what it is that you want, you need to focus on that. The next thing I talked about was understanding the trade-offs to get what you want. Now, you might not be able to have everything, right? But you can have anything. But what will it cost you to have that anything that you want? This step of understanding trade-offs is important because it helps you understand the sacrifices you may need to make to get what you want, and whether those sacrifices are worth it to you. And once you understand the sacrifices, you'll be able to hone in more on how you can get the thing that you want. So going back to the house example that I gave in my previous video, I said that my husband and I wanted to own a home, but we had to look at the trade-offs to understand whether it was worth it. Initially, the type of home we wanted would have to be 2 bedrooms and at least 2 bathrooms. However, we realized that to get that type of home, there would be some undesirable trade-offs, such as we could buy a home like that, right? A 2-bed or 2 or more bedroom, 2-bathroom home. We could buy a home like that and be house poor. So we'd spend so much money on the house that by the time we got there, we wouldn't have any money left over. Or we could buy a home with the specifications we wanted and have a mortgage. Or we could look at, other provinces which may be colder, more difficult to get to, and be even further away from family. Or we could modify what we wanted and get a 1-bathroom home instead. So after reviewing the trade-offs, we were able to hone in on what was most important, which was having a home with no mortgage and to not be house poor. But the second most important thing, which we discovered with this process, is that we wanted our family to at least be able to drive to us if needed. This was important because my dad had a stroke and may have, some issues flying. So my family would at least need to have the option to drive to see us, even if it took a few days. And as a result of figuring out those trade-offs, right, we decided to go for a 1-bathroom home in a province that was still quite far, but that my family could drive to. Now, in terms of what you want, understanding the trade-offs will help you understand what exactly is most important to you with this thing that you want or with the type of life that you want. And once you've figured out the things that are important and the priority level of the things that are important, then you can move on to the next step, which is taking action on what you want. Now, I don't have too much to say about this step because I think it's pretty much straightforward. It speaks for itself. Like, if you know what it is that you want and what the trade-offs are, then you need to plan to get it and follow your plan. I definitely think that making a plan toward what you want is the most important thing, but just ensure not to plan so much that you never actually make a move on it. So I hope this helps to clarify or at least give a bit more detail to the steps that I mentioned. If you liked this and thought it was helpful, you're definitely going to want to subscribe if you haven't already. My channel is about inspiring you to live your best life. So if you like this, you'll probably be interested in my other videos. And if you did think that this was helpful, I'd love to know what step resonated with you the most, or what step you're on right now and how that's going. Either way, I hope that this inspired you to start taking steps toward the life that you want, and I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you to live a life on your terms. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one.